Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Hello, it's Melinda from Scrapbooking and Craft. How you all going? Welcome to my first class for GIX 11, which is the Great International Craft Show here in Australia, an online craft show. And what is fantastic is all these classes are free access over this weekend, which is absolutely fantastic. So in today's class, I will be doing an art journal page with a Christmas theme. All our projects are a little Christmassy this event. So you've got loads of opportunity to get inspired for Christmas and then do some Christmas projects. So art journaling is my love. It's where I turn to when I need time out of my life. And trust me, I need that lately. Oh my God. So you're in for a fun video. So this is the page we're going to create. We're going to use this. So these images and these trees have come from paper napkins that my 13-year-old daughter sells on my website. I've also used some of my white mixed media cutouts and one of my new Christmas stencils. So all the projects I use in any of the classes over the next 4 days, if you look on the left hand side of my website, there'll be a title saying GIX class items, GIX 11 class items, and I will link the products that I've used for each class. So if you're looking for a particular product, you don't have to look through the whole website to find stuff. And I've also used Dina Wakley paints in this as well. So you can sort of see I've got a bit of a gold shine to it. So just a fun, funky page for Christmas. Not really traditional colours with sort of the Sedona and the, I think it's cheddar. I could have those names wrong. I do name the paints in the video. But enough of me talking. Let's get making. Without further ado, let's roll on this video. I'll be here in the comments on the day of the show. If not, leave a comment below in YouTube if you've got any questions or queries. Don't hesitate to ask. I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to use, as you saw in the first little clip, I'm going to use this paper napkin to feature on my page. Paper napkins you can adhere or stick to your page in several different ways. I'm going to use a slightly different napkin in the background and show you how to glue that on with matte gel medium. But this one I want as my focal image, so I want it nice and bright and I want it nice and clear and clean. So I'm going to use the Glad Wrap method or the cling wrap from Woolies. So when you get paper napkins, whether they're from my store, from my daughter's collection on our store or other places, most napkins are what we call 2-ply or 3-ply, and basically ply means layers. So it means you've got the printed layer on top and you've got white ones on the back. Now you need to remove the white ones so you have a very translucent piece of paper. Now sometimes you can go beyond this bit of rough bit and put your fingers like this, one up, one down, and gently move the layers. There we go. See how that's just come apart? Now some of them will come apart really easily. This one, the first one usually comes off easily. The second one is a bit more tricky to get off. So I can feel that has another one on it. A good way to tell is, can I use this as an example? Yes, I can. Grab something with text on it, put your napkin over it, and I can barely see the text. That tells me there's another layer on there. You should be able to sort of clearly read the text. So again, we're going to go just in past that rough bit. Be very gentle with our fingers. If I was using this one as in my background, it wouldn't matter if I tore it, but I want to use this as my focal image, so I want to be super careful. Each napkin you get 4 panels, so if you accidentally tear one, not the end of the world. We sell the napkins in packs of 2 on our website, so you get 8 images to play with, which is lots of fun. Good to share with your friends as well. So now we've got this back down, and I know that it's going to be what we need. So I'm going to cut the panels. I'm going to fold it back up because it's easier to cut the panels when it's folded. And all I'm going to do is just be very careful now because it is really, really thin. Just going to take some scissors. As you can see, it's very fragile and very hard to cut. So if I was to fussy cut this out now and try to fussy cut it out, I'd be in a whole load of bother. So there's 2 panels gone, so we've still got 2 panels attached. So we're going to find the fold again and snip between it because it is very fragile. But sticking it to the paper, we're going to stick it to 160 GSM paper. I could stick it to thicker card. If you're making cards, using these in card making, you can certainly stick it to cardstock. I could actually stick it down onto a piece of book paper. But do remember, the napkins are translucent or see-through. So whatever's on your paper will actually show through to your work. So for example, just use a good old Glad wrap box. If you stick this down over this text, see how you see the text? So whatever you stick your napkin on top of, you're going to see that coming through. I want this to be a nice bright lady, so I'm going to use a piece of white paper. So I've just trimmed a piece of 160 GSM paper down. I like to save this bit and trim it off before I start, because if I get Glad wrap over here, I wreck my bit of paper. So that goes in my scrap box. Now, we're going to build a sandwich. So this is my ironing board. Yes, it is a towel. I don't have an ironing board. A sheet of Glad Bake, what we bake our cookies on. Then we need our piece of whatever we are gluing our napkin to. So my white piece of card. We need a piece of Glad wrap, Glad Bake, cling wrap, whatever you call it. So I've just got the good old cheap Woolies brand, works just as well. You probably do want to do this in a bit of a ventilated area because it can smell and you are melting plastic. So just be aware of that. You also want to have your iron heating up as well. So you want to put your iron on like a linen setting. I'm not an ironing person, so I don't know what setting it is, but you sort of want it reasonably hot. You don't want any steam. So you want to flatten this out. You want to keep your Glad wrap within the Glad plastic, the clear plastic, within this baking paper, because you don't want your iron to touch the Glad Bake plastic, cling wrap plastic. Then you take your napkin face up. You can obviously see that's the reverse side, so face up. Pop it on a napkin. Doesn't matter if there's a few wrinkles under your with your Glad wrap. Sorry, getting tongue-tied today. Take a second sheet of baking paper. Now this baking paper you can use again and again and again. What I tend to do is quite a few napkins at the one time, because what's the point of getting my iron out for just one napkin? So all I want to do is pop it down, give it about 30 seconds, making sure that there's no Glad wrap plastic sticking out beyond this top layer of baking paper, because you will wreck your iron. Probably a good idea to do this with a crafting iron. So I'm just gently moving it across, making sure it's got good contact, and I'm just going to gently slide across. So it takes probably a minute, maybe a bit longer. It depends how hot your iron is. So we're going to test it. Be very careful. It is going to be hot. So give it a little bit so we can peel this one off. As you can see, this Glad wrap has started to melt. So we peel that off. Get that back in a minute. Now we're going to check our napkin. Now, if I can take this and see how I can pull and it's coming up, not quite hot enough, so we need to go in again. I can see I didn't do it quite hot enough. And usually this around the edge will actually, I can actually remove all of that now. So I'm just pulling that off around the edge. Makes it a bit easier. See how I can gently do this? That means it's not stuck down enough. Let's go again. So the more you do, the more you'll have an idea of what your iron will do. I'm all tongue-tied today. So again, just sort of pressing down, not pressing down firm, just using the weight of the iron to flatten stuff down. Sorry, trying not to warble the camera. Okay, let's check it again. So just be very careful, it is very hot. So let's have a go now. See how I'm pulling that, but it's still coming up a bit. We still need to do it a bit more. My iron mustn't have been heated up so much. But you can sort of see, and you can flick the edges a bit. This edge is not coming up, so this edge is good. This top edge is good. You can I'm sort of trying to flick the napkin to see all the edges are down, and obviously this bottom bit is being stubborn. Third time lucky is a charm, they say. Just make sure you always put your baking paper the same side down. See, I've got this plastic here. You want to make sure your baking paper is always always down the same way. Otherwise, again, you'll get plastic on your iron. We don't want to do that. So we get this stubborn bit down the bottom. give it a good go. Don't want to iron it too much. You don't want to put a big burn mark on it. Oh, that's looking better. See how this plastic here, that's hot. See how this plastic here is almost disappeared? That's how you know it's done. And without burning my fingers too much, I'm sort of flicking off here up into the napkin, and I'm not being able to flick any of it up. So that is good. See how that is nice and bright and white? So this is basically now a piece of pattern paper. We can use it how we use any other piece of pattern paper. It's nice and sturdy. So let me clean up my iron, turn my iron off and put it away so I don't accidentally burn myself. When I say I'm going to pause, it means I've got to go and collect something or grab something, dry something, but the video will just roll straight on for you, so it will just roll straight into the next clip. I just say I like to pause or I'll go do this because otherwise the video jumps around and it just changes the view. Like this will all change and my art journal will come back in. So it's sometimes people get a bit confused. That's why I say I'm just going to pause, but it'll roll straight in for you. Or roll straight on, I should say. Words, seriously. Tonight, a challenge. Okay, so next step. So I need to prepare my page before I start painting. So I prefer to work in altered books. I like recycling. I like picking different sizes. I do work in commercial journals like Dina Wakley and Diane Reevely as well. But this particular time I'm working in an altered book, and this is just a book of civilizations. I mainly pick it for the papers. So I thought I'd just quickly show you how I'm going to prepare my pages. So these pages, I like to stick 2 pages together to make them nice and thick. You can sort of hear the thickness between the page on the right, which is 2 glued together, to the page on the left that's not. So we're going to glue 2 pages together. I forgot the glue stick. Seriously, I forget my head lately. It wasn't screwed on. So all I do to glue my pages together is I just use what I call dry glue sticks. So this one's from Aldi, I think, at school time. I just grab them when they're cheap. You'll find some brands are better than others. So all I'm going to do is a big blob where I don't want it. Put a big blob in the spine. And then I want to go right to the edge of the big paper. It's good with the coloured ones because you can see. What I've also done is remove some pages from this book as well. I've probably removed about 1/3 of the pages. So if you are interested in a sort of video tutorial on how to turn an altered book or how to prepare an altered book, I do have one on my my daughter's and myself's YouTube channel. It's not on my business YouTube channel. If you're interested, I can message me through the Facebook page or email me through Scrapbooking and Craft, and I can find you the link and send you the link. Basically, I just take you step by step through a book that I deconstruct and turn into an art journal. So I've got glue on there. So the best way to line your pages up, fold your page over, close it. Most of the time, it will fall into place. If it's not 100% lined up, it doesn't bother me. Where's my page gone? And I think I got it beautifully. Now, see this gapping in the middle? Sometimes that'll happen between signatures in the book. So all we're going to do is grab a bit of gel medium, and I forgot my paintbrush, so let's use the good old finger. And I'm going to put a bit of gel medium either side to put a piece of masking tape. This will just help secure the pages together, and then we won't get that gappy look with our page. You can do this in commercial journals as well. You won't see this masking tape. You might see an impression of it, but you won't see the colour of it when I'm all finished. So even when I buy a commercial journal, I will remove about 1/3 of the pages. I usually don't stick pages together because usually they're thick enough. But I will remove about 1/3 of the pages anyway, because by the time you start in a journal and stick stuff to either side of every page, your journal starts to have an alligator mouth. Basically, this is your book, where here is your spine, and these are your pages that look like an alligator mouth, and your book won't close. So we don't want our journals to be alligators. So I just like to put down 1 strip across the middle and then 1 strip across the side. It's fun to work in the altered books because you can get different sizes, and sometimes I actually use what's on the page in my actual art, which is even cool too. Okay, so I'm just going to trim masking tape off, and I'm going to coat my page with gesso. Why am I coating my page with gesso, and what is gesso for all our newbies and our beginners? So gesso is an undercoat. Basically, when you paint a house, you use undercoat and then you use your colours over the top. Same thing with painting on a canvas or an art journal page. Do I gesso 100% of the time? Not 100% of the time, probably 90% of the time. The reason I gesso in my altered books more than a commercial art journal is a commercial art journal is plain. So you've got nothing to cover up. But I want to cover up these words to some extent. I still want to be able to see them faintly, but I don't want them this bold. So gesso is basically a primer, and if you don't have gesso, you can use white paint. That works as well. The difference between white paint, excuse my Vegemite jar, very Aussie, aren't we? So the difference between using white paint and using gesso has some hidden what we call tooth or grit to it. So it binds to pages and allows things to bind and sit on top of it. Some acrylic paints are very plasticky and have a resin finish, and then it's hard to stick other stuff on top of them. Clear as mud, right? So then I'm just going to take some old reused baking paper and put it between my pages. This stops my paint going over onto other pages. I'm going to fold that under, and we're just going to give this a coat of gesso. I'm not actually going to dry that gel medium, that's going to dry as we go. The reason my gesso is in a Vegemite jar is because when I buy it in big tubs, because I do go through a fair bit of it, when the tub gets down to about a third full, I do like to move it into a different bottle, because if you've got too much air in your bottle of gesso or your bottle of paint, it will eventually dry out and get thicker. And it's so much easier to hold a little jar of gesso than a big 1 kilo tub. So just paint it. You don't have to paint in a particular way. You sort of don't want to have big blobs everywhere. Some gessos are more translucent than others, so you may need 2 coats if you want to completely cover up these words. If some brands of gesso is a bit more opaque, so you may only need 1. So I keep moving my book around. I'll try to keep it straight. Some gessos you'll only need 1 paint. While I'm finishing this bit off, gesso comes in black as well, which is really cool to use and have in your stash. And gesso also comes in clear. And you go, Melinda, what's the point of having clear gesso? The point of having clear gesso is I could seal this page and still have these words quite prominent, but it will still put that barrier on my page and seal my page so I can put all mixed media and lots of fun stuff on top. And I don't mind that I've got a few wrinkles in my masking tape. It all adds to the texture of on the page. Okay, so I just want to go over the words a bit more just to knock it back. This particular brand of gesso that I'm using is a bit more translucent than I would like, so sometimes I do have to do 2 coats. Especially, it tends to dry a bit lighter than it is. But there's so many brands of gesso, and it's like going to IGA, Coles or Safeway and buying home brand chocolate. It's all home brand chocolate, it's all gesso, but different manufacturers and different brands make different consistencies of it and different formulas of it. Okay, so I'm going to dry this off and then we'll get some painty colours going. Okay, so I've grabbed some supplies. I've got an idea rolling around in my head. Sometimes when I start an art journal page, and that's the thing about art journaling, you don't have to know exactly what your page is going to look like before you start. I know I want to use this focal image, and I grabbed some of my new fancy white mixed media baubles. So I hopefully want to incorporate those. And this all could go horribly wrong as well. No, it's going to be good. So this is my focal image, so I want to sort of work with these colours. So the colours I've chosen are, I've got my Dina Wakley paints, which are my favourite at the moment, and I've pulled out Cheddar, which is almost this colour here. I have pulled out Sedona. Even though this is a dark red, I decided to go sort of the reddy orange. So it's sort of going to be traditional but non-traditional colours. Then I had to grab out a green. So I didn't want a bright green. I wanted, as I said, this could go horribly wrong in a minute, polished jade. And then I grabbed gilt. So a bit of a goldy accents. Usually I wouldn't put these colours together. You've got two warm colours and a cool colour. But we'll see how we go. I may swap out my colours. And I've grabbed some of my archival inks as well in Barn Door. What's that say? Spiced Marmalade and Fern Green. So we'll see how we go. Now I want to start building up the background first, is where we always start when we are art journaling. So I'm going to pop this aside and just leave it sitting in front of me for some inspiration. I've also grabbed one of my new mini poinsettia stencils. So I want to do some stuff with that as well. First thing, let's get some paint and colour down on the page. So I'm thinking my girl will sit about here. This is the middle of my page here. It's a bit hard to see. So this is the middle of my page. And what I want is probably these presents to sit on this side and then my girl to sit sort of here. When I'm doing a 2-page spread, excuse me, I like to overlap my focal image over the 2 pages a little, just to combine it. I probably won't have her sitting over here because then I've got really nothing over here. So that is the idea. So let's start building up some colour. I'm really into finger painting at the moment, so we're going to paint with our fingers because that's kind of fun. So I'm just going to put sort of blob of colour in 3 spots and start building sort of clusters and getting it all together. I find painting with my fingers gives me more connection to my journal page, more connection to my book. And I don't know, I just like it. If you want to paint with a paintbrush, go for it. My 13-year-old daughter is the opposite to me. She will not get paint on her fingers. She always has to get the brush out, or the silicone brush or something. Could scrape the paint across with a credit card. I just like the feel of paint on my fingers. My fingers are always dirty. So as you can see, I'm not worried about these blobs and things. A lot of this is going to be covered up. So that's cool as well. So we're done with cheddar. This paint, because we're putting it on really thin, it's almost touch dry. We are going to give it a buzz just with a few seconds. Wipe my fingers off a little. So this cheddar and Sedona, they won't really mix and make mud because they're in the, I always get them wrong, warm family. If I put these 2 colours together wet, we're going to make brown mud. So we're going to definitely make sure they're dry in between because we don't want mud. So I'm going to put a bit of Sedona. Usually these sort of more muted colours aren't my thing. I like more bold. This is sort of more me, bold and bright. But I thought, why not do something different? Christmas doesn't have to be traditional colours. You don't have to go red and green. We're going red and green, but we're going a bit off the reservation and we're going a bit sort of more earthy, sort of subdued colours. So just joining these 2 colours together, sort of bring them over to start joining up the clusters. I don't like things necessarily floating on my page, so I like things sort of be connected. Sometimes things can float, but I don't like Harry Potter heads, as I keep saying. So just sort of building up. I think I need a bit more over here, trying to get balance. I love these Dina Wakley paints because they've got a really fine tip on them. So a great place to get a huge lot of mixed media art supplies is my fellow lady in business that you sometimes see us do in-person shows at, when we're allowed to, is Hillbilly Scrapping. And I will, if I remember while I'm commentating this video, I will pop a link up to her store. She's a fantastic business based in Swan Hill and she has a huge range of mixed media. That's where I buy all my stuff from. And she does lots of fantastic stuff on her website as well. Every time I go up and see her, my suitcases are a little heavier coming home. Wonder why. Now, I'm going to give that a quick buzz. It's not going to take long because it's almost dry. You're probably thinking, what is Melinda thinking? It's looking like a hot mess at the moment, but we are getting there. Now, I'm going to go in with a bit of gilt. I'm rethinking this colour. I may go swap it for another colour. I don't know. We may just add some accents on the top. Let's go in with some gilt. Whoops. Throw on a little bit down here. So I love the gilt. Love the Dina Wakley paints because they're nice and they're heavy body paints. They're a bit more opaque than other paints. This one, the Delusions paints are a bit more watery and a bit more thinner and a bit more translucent as well. A bit too much down here. Let's pick some up. Put it through here. So if I didn't put my image on that white piece of paper with Glad Wrap and sort of went to collage her straight on, the colours would have shown through and totally messed up her face. So that's why we've stuck her to paper. I'm going to go back and add a little bit of this just here. So it's just playing until you're happy. Everyone's level of happiness is different. And I'm sure if you follow along with this class, either at the Great International Craft Show 11, I can't believe I've done 11, I think I've done 10 of these shows. If you're following along, your page will look totally different. It doesn't have to look like mine. It can look like mine if you follow it exactly. Okay. I'm liking that at the moment. Let me go and dry that off, and I'm going to use a napkin in the background. So let me go choose one of our new Christmas napkins, hopefully something matches in colour, and I'll be right back. So I'm just going to dry this off, and I'm going to choose a background napkin and add some texture into here. Okay, so I went to my new Christmas napkins, Alexis's new Christmas napkins. She allows me to have 2 out of each packet. It means we have one of each to play with. And I've got something that might go. I might bring the green in with this, or I'm thinking this in the background, in some of the background. Thinking the trees. That's still a bit wet. Oh, it's still a bit wet. Got my napkin stuck. Still a bit tacky. I have this habit of sticking my hand in wet paint to see if it's dry. And then working out if that's wet paint on my hand or dry paint. There we go. That's much better done. Yep, I think we're going to use some of this somehow. Okay. So again, I've got to separate these layers. It's not the most fun thing with a napkin, but we do need to get the layers off. Trying to do that finger trick again where one finger is going up and one finger is going down. Sometimes you can sort of tease the corner and the corners. Oh, got it. Ah, whoops, lost it. No, got it. Sometimes you can sort of tease the corners and one layer will come off. Keep these white layers. You can stamp on these. You can use these as texture in your background. I probably need to start using some of those. I've got a whole bunch somewhere. Okay. Come on, napkin. Some napkins are a bit stubborn. Sometimes I've seen people use a bit of sticky tape. Oh, there, I've got it. Sometimes a bit of sticky tape around your finger, but with the sticky side out, we'll grab your napkin and we'll separate them. So now there's 2 ways to separate out our images. We can either tear them, or we can tear them with a bit of water, or what I might do is just tear along here to get one of the panels out, because this again has got 4 panels. So I just want one of the panels. So I'm just going to grab, have I got water in this? Yes, it is water. I was just checking. I've got a something I used to clean my glasses with. I was just hoping it was water and not glasses cleaner. So what you can do is you can actually sort of fussy cut your napkin with a bit of water. What can I spray my water on? I'm going to spray it on top of the lid here. So I just want to grab my paintbrush and get it a little wet. And then I'm going to... Ooh, what is on my paintbrush? Bit of gel medium. And I can sort of come around here and you paint a bit of water on the napkin and it will allow you to gently separate the image that you want. So you just want a little bit of water. As you can see, it's sort of changed colour, and then what you can do is gently tear the images out that you like. And by tearing it like this, you actually get a fuzzy edge, and integrates more into your page. Sorry, concentrating and talking is not a good look today. So be very careful when your napkin is wet because it is so much more fragile than being dry. So I'm just going to stick sort of one tree there. I think I'm going to get rid of this little bit down the bottom. So just going across with a bit of water. So I'm going to go one there, put that little bit aside. What else are we going to cut out of here? I actually want this green tree here. So by cutting it out with the water, you do get the fuzzy edge, and it's a lot easier than trying to fussy cut it with scissors. We're going to make a sort of a row collection of trees over here. And I think I want these two. Now, when we glue this napkin down, it is going to be, let's get rid of this bit here because I don't like that bit. They are going to fade into the background a bit, but we can bring them back out with some pen work later on. So there's no mistakes in art journaling. You just slightly change what direction you are going, and change what you are doing. So I'm having issues talking and trying to craft tonight. It's a bit late in the day. So I'm just sort of wanting to play around with placement. Where'd my baubles go? Don't breathe while you're playing with napkins because you'll make them fly away. So I sort of want to have a bit of an idea. Let's put our focal image back in. So she's going to sit sort of here. Starting to get a bit of a layout. I think I want a little bit of a tree over here. So I like these two together. So it's not going to be perfect cutting out when you're doing it with the water, but the white of the napkin will almost disappear when we glue it down with gel medium in a moment. And I want to take that hard edge off. I don't want that straight edge. So I just want to pull that off and make it a bit fluffy. So I'm liking that about there. And then as you use this entire panel of napkin, maybe that in the middle. So again, I just want to get rid of this side bit here. These more straighter trees are a bit easier to get rid of than going around all the fluffy bits. I'm just going to take a little bit of this white off. And if you do tear something off that you didn't intend to, you can always stick it back on. Now I've got a collection of 4 and I don't want 4. So let's take that red tree out, but I'll keep that little one in there. I'm going to stick that one sort of down in, nestle that in somewhere like this. And maybe I could utilise this one over here. Actually, maybe. No, I like that one there. I'm going to play around with these all day. I might actually bring... So before you glue them down, do have a play around with your placement. No, I think I liked it around the other way. I could sit and procrastinate all day, so we are just going to go with it. We like it there. Liking this, and my girl's going to sit here, so let's start sticking. So to stick a napkin down, that's the one I want. I was not organised tonight, was I? So to stick really thin napkins down, you want a really thin adhesive. Acrylic matte medium, if you listen, see how it's really liquidy? That's what you want to glue down your napkins. You don't want a thick matte, multi-matte medium or a matte medium that's thicker in consistency. This one you can see I can tip the jar upside down, it's not going to gush out. If I tip the other one upside down, it will gush out. So matte mediums or matte glues come in different consistencies or different thicknesses. So you want to sort of match the thickness of the glue to the thickness of your paper. So, so thin, good way to remember it, thin paper like this goes for napkins, rice paper or tissue paper. Those three are sort of all interchangeable. Your napkins are your most fragile, then it goes to tissue paper, then it goes to rice paper. Rice paper is a bit more thicker and a bit more not as fragile. So you want to put a blob down or a bit down where you want to stick your napkin, and it's all going to dry clear, so you don't have to worry about going over some area you don't want. And it's going to dry matte, so it's going to dry not with a gloss. Gently place your napkin down, and while you've still got plenty of liquid in your paintbrush, you're going to start from the middle and fan out. Now, you probably only want to go over the same spot twice. You don't want to go over and over, because as soon as you get this napkin wet, it will actually start to tear. And I'm being ever so gentle. I'm feathering with my paintbrush. I'm not applying a lot of pressure. And see how that whiteness of the napkin has almost disappeared. When it dries a bit more, you'll see it a bit more. So I want to put this one down here. So again, just being super, super careful. See how that green of that back tree is coming through on that front tree? Now you can put your matte medium onto a palette and pick it up. I just throw it straight in my book. I very rarely use a paint palette because that's something else I have to wash. I'm a lazy crafter. I don't like spending time cleaning, so I'd rather spend time making stuff in my journal. Whoops. So Hillbilly Scrapping sells this matte medium as well. It's good to have in your stash. Got a bit too much there, so I'll just brush it over and I'll pick it up when I put this down. Oh. So once it starts grabbing the wet matte medium, you don't want to move your napkin. So unfortunately, if you put it in the wrong spot, you can't really pick it up because it's a bit fragile. Rice papers you can. They're a bit more solid and you can sometimes peel them up. It depends. But paper napkins are so fragile when they're wet. Let's move my baubles out of the way. So as you can see, that white is almost disappearing. You'll see it a little bit, but some tissue paper, some rice paper, some napkins disappear more than others. So it just depends on how much matte medium you use, what colour you've got underneath it, whether you see it. Depends how you hold your tongue some days. And the colours from underneath will come through because this napkin is quite translucent. A tiny bit more. Oops. Being ever so gentle. If I'm putting them in the background like this and I tear them a little bit, not such a biggie deal. I can just deal with it. I can pick it up and re-put it back down where I want it to be. I can actually, instead of glad wrapping my image to the paper, I can use my matte gel medium to glue this to the paper, but the glad wrap is so much quicker and you get a more of a crisp, clear image, if that makes sense. But there's no reason why you can't do it that way as well. Oops, I've got a big blob down here I'll get rid of. I stuck on my book. Nearly forgot about. So you just want to make sure you don't have any big blobs of matte gel medium. Just brush it over your book. Another good thing with matte gel medium, if you have anything that's glossy, like a photo or like a magazine image or anything that you want to take the gloss off, paint it with a layer of matte gel medium and you can take the gloss off anything, the gloss shine. Okay, now I need to dry those napkins because they are very fragile when they are wet. So let's dry that off. Let me pause the video because you don't really need to watch paint dry or glue dry. It's looking very, very... Okay, so this is totally dry. And now let's do some stenciling because at the moment that napkin just looks like it's stuck on. By overlapping some stenciling over the top of the edges and going out beyond it will help combine it together. Let me just put my paintbrush over there so So what colours am I going to do? They're supposed to be poinsettia flowers, so maybe not green. Okay, we'll go with these ones. So these are archival inks. The reason I like archival inks in my art journal, there's no reason why I can't use a Distress Oxide. But, there's always a but. But Distress Oxides are water reactive. So if I want to go and add anything more with watery stuff in it, if I want to glue more napkins on, if I want to go over with watercolour or anything like a Tim Holtz Distress Oxide or any water-soluble ink will move. These are archival, so that means they're waterproof. They will not move whatever I chuck at them. So that's why I like archival inks. And I'm going to use a blending brush. Again, I got all these from Hillbilly Scrapping. You'll hear me mention her 1,000 times in my videos. This is a Paper Rose blending brush, and it's got lots and lots of bristles, and it's the best thing to stencil with ink with your stencils because it gets in all the fine little grooves and nooks and crannies, and it gives you a really nice look. So let's try with the, I don't think the light yellow is going to work as in show up. So I'm just going to take this and rub, actually I should have tested to see if I had ink in my brush. Now I never wash these brushes. The ink just dries on the bristles. So I'm just going to rub it on a bit of paper or a bit of paper towel just to make sure I haven't dunked it in black before. And I'm just going to rub it over the ink pad. As I said, I don't think this colour is actually going to show up, but we're going to have a go. Then we might go to the darker one. It might surprise me. And I apologise if the table's wobbling. Let's have a look. We'll do a little bit. You can sort of see it in places. Let's do a little bit in this. More coming out where the white is. So this is, what's this colour? Spiced Marmalade. So these actually do match the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide ranges because I know he's got one labelled Spiced Marmalade. I want to go a bit darker. Excuse my head if it gets in shot. For anyone that's new to my art or my business or my classes, I do have low vision, so sometimes my head will pop into screen. I apologise. I'm not doing it on purpose. I just have to get a bit closer to my work to see what the hell I'm doing. My vision is that bad. I'm not even allowed to drive, which makes life fun. Put it that way. Actually, it sucks, but it makes life fun. So, and when it comes to fussy cutting, I may sneak out of the frame a bit, but I don't try to do it on purpose. Actually, I'm liking that. And then I might do some more with the darker colour as well. So going from a lighter colour to a darker colour in the same sort of tonal family, I don't really have to sort of make sure I get the ink out of here because it won't cross-contaminate. These bristles pick up the finest amount of ink. It is fantastic. And it's great for your fine stencils. See how we're getting a nice fine stencil? There's no reason why I couldn't have bought it in with paint, but this gives us a bit more of a subtle look. So we're building up those layers. Obviously, the darker you go, the harder you press, the more times you ink up your brush, the darker colour you'll get. And I'm just doing blobs. I'm not really wanting to get sort of like a square of flowers. So I'm sort of just going round and round and round. Go up to the top of the page to ground it up the top. So I've sort of got a cluster forming up here. I've got a bit of a cluster down here, and our person's going to be in the middle. So even if I'm going with this reddy colour over a reddy paint, you don't see it a lot. You'll see it faintly enough to make a difference, if that makes sense. Let's just bring this down here a bit. I can always make some of these pop out with some line work later, or I can just come over it with another colour. I'm doing some down here. The other thing is knowing when to stop is a learnt skill in art journaling, in any crafting. And I'm sorry I can't teach you that because I'm still learning when to stop. I think stopping there is a good start. I think I'm liking this. Very different to the colours I usually use. So my brain is looking at it and going, but I do like it. So I'm just going to reposition. I've lost a bauble. Ah, sitting on top of the small one. See? Couldn't see that. Oh. So I'm going to have sort of these hanging, sort of like that. Let's work on our focal image. We may add more stuff. Art journaling is all building layers. So we've sort of laid our gesso, we laid our paint, we laid our napkins, we've laid our stenciling, and we just keep building up layers. Obviously our focal image and our baubles. Let's fussy cut. Basically, fussy cut just means cut around the object. I'm going to keep the saying because I want to incorporate the saying into my project as well. So let's cut that out first. No reason why you couldn't keep this in a square. These napkins, we've got a fantastic range of Christmas napkins. Alexis has been out and about shopping. And we've got a fantastic range that are fantastic for cards and scrapbooking and art journaling. You could just mount this, trim this down and mount this on the front of a card. I'm just going to go around this present. And again, I apologise if my head comes into shot or I go out of frame. Usually when I fussy cut, I have the piece of paper or stuff right close to me. You can see I'm turning it round and round. If you're new to cutting out things, it is so much easier to keep your cutting hand, so my right hand, in the one position and actually turn the piece of paper with your left hand, as opposed to, I'll just finish this a little bit and then I'll show you. Oh, I can't see what I'm doing. So it's easy to keep this hand still and move the paper with this hand, as opposed to trying to do this with your hand and get it all caught up. Now, oh, that little bit has to go down the bottom there from the border. What I'm going to do is, I don't like the white around her feet and the feet of the chairs and stuff like that, but that's going to be a pain in the butt to fussy cut. So I'm going to cheat in a minute. And we're going to watercolour that to just take away the whiteness. Because who's got time to fussy cut that out? It's impossible. So I'm just going to go around the presents around her. It's best to fussy cut with like a small pair of scissors, so you can get in all the nooks and crannies. And if you're not perfect, it doesn't matter. And if you accidentally cut something off, no one will really know. I'll come back and do that bit in a minute. Sometimes it's easy to not go around the detail bit and then come back and sort of just finish it off later. I know some people hate fussy cutting, some people like fussy cutting. I don't mind it. I tend to sit and do bulk amounts of it at one time if I've stamped out images and things like that. Let's go around her head. When I was catching trains, I would sit there and fussy cut in the train. I'd get the weirdest looks from people walking past and the weirdest look from the conductor. But I would sit there and fussy cut on the train. Or when I'm waiting for my daughter at doctor's appointments and different things, I'll just have a little bag of stamped images or napkins that I've already glued with the glad wrap onto pages and just sit there and fussy cut them out. I'm just going around her. She's beautiful, but gee, she's got some detail on. That's right, we'll make it work. Put our watercolours out and colour in the bits we don't. Or it may look good with white. We'll have a squizzy when I put it down on the page. I don't like to stick things like focal images down until the very last minute, because I will keep popping it there and seeing what else I need to go around it. Nearly finished this. Sorry if this is a bit boring. So if you tried to do this without having the paper backing on it, it would be just impossible. You just tear it and it'd be so fragile. This sort of gives it a bit more stability and it doesn't look like you've got... now, how am I going to end the... I'll take a little bit more off her shoulder without chopping off her... Whoops, without chopping up the bit I nearly chopped off. You might find when you're fussy cutting, sometimes the layer of napkin comes off the paper, but that's right. We're just going to use a bit of the acrylic matte medium to stick it back down. I'm just thinking how much I want to go in here. I think I want to go in it a bit. I sort of want to go in it a bit, but not in it too much in detail. I'm sort of just going to, I don't know, sort of do that. I think So it sort of looks like I've deliberately done it, but it's actually, I don't mind the white there. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. Okay. I think I am liking this. Where did the title go? Oh, what fun it is to shop. It is fun to shop in person. I'm doing lots of shopping online lately. Oops. What I like to do is sometimes with these sayings is to cut them up and space them out. So this one we can sort of do that. So just go through the middle and cut it into 2 pieces. May cut it into, oh, what fun it is. I don't want to cut into 2 and 2 because that will look funny. Maybe I'll just go oh and then what fun it is. Oh, what fun it. Sort of trying to cut it where you'd break in saying. Does that make sense? Like, oh, what fun it is to shop. Not, oh, what fun it is to shop. Does that make sense? Clear as mud, right? Actually, we might... Excuse me. Might move this over here. See how by cutting it up, we can space it out and fill more. I need a bit more off the top of that. It's a bit thick. In fact, a bit too much white. See how by cutting it up, you can sort of space it out and fill in more blank space? Okay. Now, what? Just checking the time. What are we going to do with these baubles? I think I want to put colour behind them so they stand out, because at the moment they fade in. And what colour do I want them to be? Ooh, I think I want them to be gold. And put what behind them? Let's paint them gold and then decide what, if we're going to put... I shouldn't be yawning. Sorry. It's very late at night tonight. Obviously, this brief film video has been done late at night. Okay. I think I want them gold. Let's paint them gold and see what they look like. And then I'll decide if I want to put a backing on them or whether I just want to stick them on. And I'm also going to draw a wiggly line so they look like they're hanging. Let me grab a sponge. It's about the only thing I don't have here. Okay. So I've just grabbed a piece of black paper. This is what I put in any of your products that you purchase from me. I put this black backing in your packages. Just move my art journal out of the way. And it's great for doing things like this. Now, when I paint little baubles like this, I like to get some scrap paper, and you'll see in a minute when I start that instead of doing it on really scrap paper that I'd throw out, I put it onto here and it gives me another image to use one day. I have a one-day box, and one day it may get used. Or I may get collaged in the back of something. So I just want to hold this. So we're going to sort of stencil. I'm using a squishy makeup sponge to stencil with. Excuse the yawning, I apologise. I won't tell you what time it is. Let's just say it's no longer today. Oh, I'm funny. So I want to dab it in paint, but I don't want a big blob of paint on my sponge. This goes for if you're sponging through a stencil or sponging onto stuff like this, because this is nice and fine detail. We don't want big globs of paint. So we're going to just tap it off until it almost looks like our sponge is empty, but there's loads in there, trust me. It's going to go an up and down motion to go all over. Now, these paper shapes that I make and produce on my website are reversible, so you can turn them over to the reverse side and use them, so you can turn the direction of them. These ones don't really, they're not really obvious when you turn them around, but they do have a bit of black or brown marks on the back of them because they are laser cut, so they're burnt with a laser. Sometimes more detailed shapes like these will have a bit more black markings on them just because it's more passes of the laser and you get more burnt bits. So I'm just going to flick that off. Come on. There we go. So you do have to be a bit careful. Oh, doesn't that look beautiful? So you have to be a bit careful when you're sponging onto these because they are a bit fragile. They're 400 GSM mixed media cardstock. Well, I think it's 370 to 400 GSM. So they're quite heavyweight, but they're also quite thin, so they work really well in your art journal. So they're thick enough to take a lot of abuse, like paint and inks, and you can throw all sorts of stuff at them, but they are thin enough to then use in your art journal without getting too bulky and too thick. So I'm just making sure I come outside the bauble as well. So if I am going to use this, I can cut it out. This is not going to be perfect. There's going to be bits that leak under, but as a background piece, I wouldn't use these as focal images. As a background piece or a accompanying piece, they look quite cute. So I'm just going to put this one here. I do like them in the gold. They do look quite nice. We do have a stencil in this design as well. As part of this Christmas release, we have a stencil / mask set. So you can stencil these baubles onto cards or to art journal pages or scrapbook pages. There we go. And I've got a bit of paint left, so let's just go over this one again. Haven't got enough paint left. Even though this one's already got paint on it, I've got a little bit of paint left on my sponge, so why not just stencil another bauble for the one day box. That's what I call it. One day I'll use it. Or when I send happy mail to a friend, she gets all my pieces from my one day box and uses them. It's fun to get someone else's pieces. Oh, I like that one better than that one. Okay. So that is something cute to use on other projects. Now let me just put that out of the way. Let me dry these off for a few seconds and then I'll bring my art journal back in and we'll do the finishing touch. Now the question is, do I want them to be quite subtle or do I want them to stand out? At the moment they're quite subtle because they don't have... How did I have them before? I've forgotten how I had them. I think I had them like this. Actually I like that one there. And maybe up here. No, I like it. I think I like it down here. I like this one here. As I said, I could procrastinate for days. Stick it down, Melinda. Maybe we do two little... No, don't like that. Maybe the big one, two little ones. No, go with my original thought. See, I can move things 100 times, and you'll find that when you art journal as well. And then you'll finally stick it down. I think I like this one over. Try not to cover up the tree. That's the issue I'm having at the moment. I think I like that. Okay, stop touching them. Okay, so this is going to go here. My title's going to go up here. So the last thing to do is stick all this down and do some pen work. Just trying to locate my glue. Yes, I think we are going to stick. As I said, I could procrastinate all night. Let's not do that. So because this is a bit more sturdy paper, I'm going to use just a good craft glue. Usually I use Helmar 450 that I get from Hillbilly Scrapping, but I'm just out. I'm overdue a trip to Hillbilly Scrapping to stock up on all my supplies. Might just have to go on a website and have it posted out. I buy all my supplies from her. We support each other, which is fantastic. Got to support Aussie grown businesses. And I don't want to stick gel medium over the top of this like I did the tissue paper. So where's the crease in my book? The crease in my book is there, so I want sort of there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these baubles off and then try to get them back in the spot. When I'm sticking stuff over the spine, I like to stick it on. Then I like to take my page and fold it and give it a good fold. And then have it fall off. So that when I fold my book, it has a nice crease and fold in it. There we go, it's stuck down now. So putting things over the spine also gives your book strength as well. I don't always do it on every page because you don't want to put a lot of bulk in the spine because, again, you'll have an alligator book. But you want to sort of strengthen up the spine as well. And you almost can't see. You can see a couple of the lines of the tape which don't bother me, but you almost can't see the tape. Now, where do I have these pesky baubles? Often before I stick stuff down or take stuff off to take stuff off to stick it down, I will just click a photo of my page And then if I've got multiple elements, I can actually work out where they were supposed to go. Let's stop procrastinating, stick these down. Now to stick something like this down, I tend to just put blobs of glue, and you want a fairly sort of strong glue because it is 400 GSM cardstock. So I'm just, oops, fell into one of the holes. So I'm just aiming for the fattest bits, or the thickest bits, I should say, of paper, because you don't need to get glue everywhere. I just want to hold that down for a little bit. Got glue on my hand. So these little ones, ideally a thinner tipped glue would be better for these ones, but hey, I'm using what I've got. It'll all work out. So if you do attempt any of my classes over these 4 days of GICS, Great International Craft Show, I would love to see them. You can, even if you don't use any of my products, if you are inspired by any of the layouts I make and you use different products, when you upload to social media, if you upload to social media your pages, you can tag us with the words scrapbooking and craft, which will be in the title of this video. That's our business name. And then I will search that tag. Sorry, I just can't see if I'm getting glue out. I will search that tag and have a look at your creations. If you don't want to put it up on social media and you just want to send it in private message, you can do that via Facebook as well, or email me a picture. I can have a squizzy. I like to squizzy at people's work. It's fun. Okay, so those are glued down. Now the final step is to do some pen work. Oh, no. See, if this was alive, you'd say, no, the final step is sticking your title on, Melinda. Oh, now I've got glue all over my fingers. Oh, what fun it is to shop. I sort of want to keep this over this side. What fun it is to shop. Okay, let's stick the middle one on first, and then I can place the other two around it. If this was alive, you'd be all yelling at me, put your title on. Oops. Oh, where am I going to put O? About, no, I don't want there, about there. So before we do the next step, we do want everything to be completely dry. Because our pens don't like going into wet stuff. So I just got to make sure this glue is dry. So let me pause it and dry it off with glue. Dry the glue off. This is the fun bit, and this is the bit that brings it all together. As you can tell, I've gone funny in the wee hours of the morning. Okay, pen work. So pen work really brings a page to life and gives it the wow factor. Let's get rid of this paper so it stops crunching. So I'm done with all the messy stuff. Now, I use a variety of pens in a variety of sizes for different things. So I've got a Uniball I Micron. This one's from Officeworks, and it's got a really fine ballpoint tip. Then I've got two of those. I obviously like those very much. Now you've got paint pens from Posca, which have a very small nib on them. You've also got paint pens from Posca that have a thicker nib on them. So depending on what thickness of line you want, you've also got Delusions paint pens. Hillbilly Scrapping sells Posca paint pens. She sells the Delusions pens. You can also have Pintor paint pens. I think these gold ones are actually from Kmart. So I collect pens from all over. Doesn't matter what pen you use, make sure your page is 1000% dry. Otherwise you'll wreck quite a few pens. Trust me. Been there, done that. So I'm going to turn my book upside down a lot and around, so I apologise. I'm going to outline our title first. So I'm just giving my paint pen a bit of a shake, and hopefully my paint pens will behave, because sometimes they misbehave. What I'm going to do is just sort of a scratchy line, scratchy box around it. Ideally, I usually leave my pen work for a couple of hours, just because I've ruined that many pens in my history of art journaling. It's not funny anymore. If you get any gel medium or paint on these tips of the paint pens, it will seal over the felty tippy thing and you'll wreck it. See how that has brought the title out and it's sort of grounded it? Now I'm getting my paints. I've got to clean up. Now, where else do I want to do some detail? This will also bring the black in from the image to put some black in some other places. So my thoughts on pen work is do as much as you want. If you want to darken something, you put white on it. And if you want to bring it out and you want to lighten something, you put, okay. If you've got something on your image that is too dark, you put white on it to lighten it up. Like this tree here, we might add a bit of white to that. If you've got something too light, you put black on it to darken it and knock it back a bit. Let's see if my Delusions paint pen will work. Sometimes these are a bit temperamental. Sometimes if I lick my finger, it gets the ink going. Oh, there we go. Yep, look at my finger worked. Glad it's my own paint pen. Let's draw around this tree. I'll have to go find a different white paint pen. You can also use like a white gel pen as well. This is just going to have a moment. And my other ones might be a bit thick. Let's sit that upside down. See if it'll come good. So this one's a bit thicker. But I sort of just want to put some highlights on the tree. I don't want to sort of trace around the tree completely. Just wanting to sort of highlight it a bit. So I'm just adding a little bit of white. As you can see, that sort of popped it out from the page. I want to add a bit of white to this one. But what I might do is, on this one, is follow the stripes across. So just putting a line under some of the red stripes, just to bring a bit more whiteness back into the trees. And I find turning my book around, I don't know whether that's part of my low vision or whether it's just easier for me to turn my book around. Instead of trying to draw like this, I find drawing down is more conducive to what my hand likes to do as opposed to trying to go like this and draw in different directions. What am I going to do now? I'm going to just outline these swirls a bit. Just be careful when you're doing paint pen work on your page that it is paint coming out of your paint pen, obviously, and it will be wet, so you just don't want to try to smudge where you've been. So I'm just going over these lines. As you can see, my lines are quite sketchy. I find if they're a bit more sketchy, they look a bit more in place than if they're like a solid line. I want to do this tree up here as well. As you can see, just a little bit of line work just highlights and brings out what images you want to bring out. And you can do as much pen work. I enjoy doing a lot of pen work. It sort of calms my brain, soothes my brain. Some people hate it, which is fine. When I teach in-person classes, people groan at the amount of line work I suggest they do. But it's up to you. Art journaling is very personal. So if you look at this page and reproducing it and you particularly don't like the line work, don't put it on. It's up to you. Art journaling can be very personal. I'm just going to draw wiggly lines so these look like they're hanging as opposed to just hanging in dead space. So art journaling can be very personal. You can put as much into your page as you like. I'm just following where this will be. Obviously drawing over the napkin, that's a bit textured, so you just want to be a bit careful and you want to make sure that is really, really dry. Now I just want to do sorry, I'm just thinking what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to take this straight up. I didn't think about this when I put the black lines on the tree bit, but that's right. Yeah, it'll still look good. And knowing when to stop and walk away from your book is a skill that is fun to try to teach people. Because I still actually, ooh, I do like that. Ooh, let's make it a bit wiggly. I like that now. Let's make these a bit wiggly. Because someone couldn't be bothered wiggling the string and tied them up with very wiggly string. Now that would be me. Oh, that looks better. Oh, I do like that. See how by adding that wiggly line, it's just improved the line as well. Now, what else? What I want to do is draw around my focal image. And what that does is I'm just going to draw around on the painted surface, so slightly off the, like on the edge. And what this does is it grounds your image and it looks like it's supposed to be there and it doesn't look stuck on. So worst comes to worst, just outline your image. Whoops. And if you go a bit up onto the napkin, doesn't matter. Don't tell anyone I made a mistake. There's no mistakes in art journaling. You just slightly change what you thought you were going to make. And as I said, I really didn't have an idea of where this page was going before I started. And I usually never do. Like, I know I want to use the napkin. I thought, oh, I'll chuck some baubles in there. Obviously, I picked the green paint. We didn't end up using the green paint. Wasn't really happy when I picked the green paint. I'm thinking, I don't think that'll go. But feel free to change your mind as you go on. Like, I could have made this background and then stuck this focal image on or placed it on and go, ew, I don't like that. I like my background, but that's just not the right focal image. This is annoying me. So don't be afraid to change what you thought you were going to do. There's no right and wrong way with art journaling. There's a few steps and a few things that make a page successful. And that is sort of this end line work. And obviously sort of choosing the right colours and things like that. But you're the owner of your artwork. You're the owner of your art journal. You do what you do and you do what you like. So the great thing about an art journal is at the end of your session, you can close your book and you don't have to show it to anyone. My books are on display all over the internet, all over the world, because that's my choice as a creator. But you don't have to do that. You can not show anyone. Art journaling can be very therapeutic as well. I think we need some dots. So I'm just going to put some dots just with the thicker paint pen here and there because I feel we need some dots. Sometimes I regret what I do to my pages because I think, oh yeah, it needs this, and then I do it and it's like, uh-oh, it was not the brightest idea. But I learn from it. For me, art journaling is not about the finished process. This is not going to hang in the Louvre. This is not going to hang in a fine art museum. This, for me, art journaling is about sitting down for the hour, sitting down for the 2 hours, taking time out of my day and playing, getting messy, getting paint on my fingers, sitting here and doing millions of dots. Art journaling for me is not about the end process. If I get to the end of the page and go, okay, I had fun along the journey, didn't like the destination, but that's okay. I had fun. Now I've got 4 spots of dots. I need a 5th. Do a 5th up here. So for me, art journaling is all about taking that time to relax, to play, and just work out my day. Work out my feelings. Before I started, I could have scribbled some journaling in the background of how my day went. This particular day went not as planned because I ended up walking to the shops twice in one day, which I usually try to avoid, and I was at the shops yesterday and I've got to go back to the shops tomorrow. So it's been one of those days. So for me, sitting down and having this time in my journal resets my brain before I go to bed. I think we need some white dots. Now we've had black dots. I don't really want the napkin. I think I'll go with this one. Actually, let's go with little crosses. Because I can change my mind. So just adding in these little bits of detail, just sort of add just a little bit of interest, another layer. With these dots and these little details, I'm trying not to make like a square. It's sort of just a sprinkling, almost as if you picked up a bit of confetti and just threw it at your page. And I probably want some up here. And I think then I might have to stop, because otherwise I will get to, oh my god, I regret that. But I'm quite liking this page. As I said, going along, this is not my usual colour palette, but it's growing on me. It is. And it's not traditional colours for Christmas either. So it doesn't matter. It's your art journal. It's your place to experiment. It's your place to have fun. The only other thing I'd possibly add, and I don't know whether it needs it, is a border. Often I will do borders on my pages. Let me see what I've got in here. Okay. This one I did the other day, and you can see I've got a squiggly line border around the edge in gold. Border sort of just finishes the page, but what I think I need on this one is I don't want to do a scribbly border. What I might do is just dust a bit of ink just where the white bit is, just to give your eye somewhere to finish. It's going to be really subtle. Now, do I want red or do I want orange? Let's start with orange because I can always make it darker. So I'm just going to grab my archival ink pad again and do the very naughty thing to the ink pads. And if you're a stamper, you're probably going, don't do that to your ink pads. But I do this all the time. That's okay. So I'm just going to brush a bit of ink. Yes, I could do this with the brushy thing, but I just do it with the ink pad. And if I get a big whoopsie like that, I'm not really deceived. But this will just give it, oh wow, you can see the difference. See how it's just subtle on the right-hand side and there's none on the left-hand side? It just sort of, giving your page a border, whether it's a subtle border or a more bold border and part of your design, gives your eye somewhere to finish. Now, I always have fun doing this because it's almost backwards. I've got to get the ink pad on the right angle to get as much as I want on it. That's a bit better. Felt awkward doing that way, the other side. And I think this page is done. Thank you very much for coming to my class for the Great International Craft Show. And welcome to anyone that is international and not from Australia. Welcome to anyone that's new to my business. So all of these products that I've used, that I sell in my business, the baubles, the napkins, that stencil, will be available on my website. And I'll have a special category on the left-hand side of my website that'll say Geeks 11 Christmas. And I will copy these particular items into that product, into that category, so you can find them easily. And I will be back in the classroom at 4:30 on Friday, 4:30 on Saturday, and 4:30 on Sunday. And I'll also have some live demonstrations on my Facebook page across the 4 days. Haven't finalised the times for those yet. So do like the Facebook page and then you'll get notifications when I pop up. I will be putting a note up before Thursday with times when I work it out. And then I may pop up and just do some other lives when I get a chance. Life is a bit crazy and nuts at the moment, so often I make plans and then other people have other ideas for my presents and plans have to change. But I'm very happy with that, and hopefully you learned something and hopefully you're going to give it a go. Bye for now.